Ali, Atman, and it's gonna be more of a conversation. These brothers, they know how to flow, they know how to talk, they know how to give it to you. So it's gonna really let them speak to it, brother. Right? You might want to spotlight yourself too. I know you're gonna be part of this conversation, but this is just a conversation around, three bald-headed brothers and one with the locks. So whenever he cuts his, we can get ours in. But let me just pause here and just say, brothers, like, as you know, we get the Bibles and we get the information about, who people are, but what is important for everyone on this call to know about you and how you came to be?
First, thanks for having us. It's always good to connect with y'all. We working on actually on another youth retreat for next summer. We're working on getting it together. So once we get the dates, we'll let y'all know. But I'd say something about I say that the Holistic Life Foundation was started before we were even born. You know what I mean? Like the actual what got us here. I'd say it was a couple things. One was our godfather, who was our teacher. He was one of those people that got into yoga in the early 60s and never ever got out of it. He was one of those people that was always looking for change. Black Panther, like, we went that route, saw that wasn't really, you know what I mean? He didn't really think that was going to make the type of change that he wanted to really see in the world. And then, was searching for something to make a different type of change in the world. He was walking past this bookstore and he saw this dude with this like weird looking smile and a big mustache and a funny looking nose. And he walked in and he was like, who the hell is this dude? So he went and he grabbed the book, and it was a book by Mayor Baba. He took it home and he read it. He went back to the bookstore and bought the entire section of yoga books from this bookstore. Like every single yoga book they had, he bought and took them home and started studying. My dad had a prostate issue and went to him and was like, yeah, I'm having this issue with my prostate. Da, 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 da. And Uncle Will was like, well, just do these 4 things, show him 4 yoga poses. My dad never had another prostate issue ever in his entire life. And then so my dad was like, what is this? They gave my dad the complete illustrated book of yoga. And, my dad was on it from then. And then at that time, my dad was like, well, let's learn some more of this. So at the time, between Baltimore, DC, Northern Virginia, and Philly, there were all these places where you could go learn yoga. So they were like, in Baltimore, there was the Golden Lotus Temple, which was like a branch off of the Healthy, Happy, Holy Center. So they learned Kundalini there. There, Osho and his people had like a little place in DC they would go to. They had some places in Philly, and then they joined this church that was in the Self-Realization Fellowship lineage. They like Autobiography Yogi, called the Divine Life Church of Absolute Monism at the time. So it was based on Kriya Yoga. So all this stuff going on. And then when me and Atman were born, we were born into the practice. So it was like our basement. We live in a row house in Baltimore. So if you think about like typical Baltimore row house, has like the knotty pine wood on the walls in the basement, probably like a bar set up. So it was like for partying before that. But by the time we were born, it was set up like a meditation room. So it was like there were spiritual posters all over the place. This big Buddha statue that actually I still have on my altar to this day. And like all this stuff. So it was like a meditation room. And when we were born, my dad decided we were going to meditate. We were going to join this church. So we joined we joined the Kriya Yoga Church. So that was like our church upbringing. Our dad would make us meditate every single morning. And he was a coach, so it wasn't like he was asking us to meditate. He was making us meditate every morning. There was no like, we don't want to do this. It was like, y'all can get yourself up and y'all can go and we're gonna go meditate in the morning. So we got up and meditate in the morning. And we actually didn't find out until a few years ago that we were practicing transcendental meditation as kids. And it made sense once we thought about it, but we never really asked the question, but we were sitting around talking about it, and it came up. I think so. Our mom was into the practice too, but she was more on the Ayurvedic side. So she was into like the cooking and things along those lines. So she went. There was this like Hare Krishna temple in DC where she learned how to cook really good vegetarian food, actually vegan food. So we were like the black meditating vegans in West Baltimore in the early 80s. So it was like, now we'd have been cool as hell now, but back then we were the weird kids on the block. So that was just our upbringing. Like it was the meditation, it was going to that church. And church was cool because it kind of normalized the meditation practice for us for the first time, because we saw other kids. We walked down to the basement in Sunday school, and there were other kids in there meditating. So it was kind of cool to see, like, there were actually other kids in the world that meditated. It wasn't just me and Ottman out on this island. And it was a dope place to go to church. The guy that ran the place was this dude named, he became Swami Shankarananda, but me and Ottman still call him Acharya Peter because that's how we fondly knew him as children. But he was one of those people that went through the Kriya Yoga practice. If you read Autobiography of a Yogi, in the older versions before they edited it up, and there was this guy named Swami Premananda who was Yogananda's like top student. In the older version, if you get one, now they've edited him out. But Yogananda sent him to DC, and Acharya Peter was studying with him, and then he sent Acharya Peter to Baltimore to start this church. So he's deeply steeped in the practice. He was like one of those people. Me and I were actually having this conversation yesterday. Like Uncle Will and Acharya Peter are two people that we know that it wasn't, a lot of people, like, they're speaking from here when they're speaking about the practice, and there's some people where the practice just kind of flows through them, where they just shut this off and it just starts flowing. And we were actually talking about how, like, there were times with Uncle Will where his voice would switch up a little bit. He would turn Uncle Will off, and the stuff would just start flowing through him. And even when it stopped, he would be like, "Damn, did y'all hear that?" Like it's like he was listening to it as well. It wasn't like he was saying it. It was like it was flowing through him. And so Acharya Peter at church, he was like one of those people that he would always, there was this big sign on the wall above where he spoke that said "Truth is one." And as kids, it said "Truth is one." Men call it by various names. But then later on, he changes the "Truth is one." People call it by various names. And there was a clock up there with it, but all of the 1 through the 12 had all these different religious symbols. And he would always say that, like, he would start all of his talks with the Bible, because he said that was the easiest way he could reach people in America was with the Bible. But then he would show the same things being said in, like, the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or Native American spirituality or wherever. But he was just showing that, like, all the underlying truths of every single religion and spiritual practice are exactly the same. It's just packaged a little different in all these different religions. And he did a great job of doing that. So yeah, me and Ottman meditated for a long time as kids, probably up until our parents got divorced, which was when I was in 4th grade and Ottman was in 2nd grade. And then our meditation practice stopped, being vegetarian stopped, all that stuff kind of came to a screeching halt. So I think that was one of the seeds that was planted. And I think our dad for a couple of reasons. One, our dad always had like this entrepreneurial spirit. And he'd always say he never got around the right people to finish it off. So he had started like a record label. He had done like the original TV show that was the original version of Soul Train. Like there was like all this stuff that he was working on. Baltimore Breakout was the name of the show. If you look it up, it was like the original Soul Train, but they couldn't get it together, and it kind of fell apart.
Yeah, and CBS actually wanted to buy it from him, but he had too many gangsters on his team that they couldn't agree on, to sell it or not. You know what I mean? And so they just stole it from him and created Soul Train.
Yeah. So he was always into entrepreneurial stuff, and by the time me and Ottman were finishing, so like fast forward a little bit, me and Ottman are finishing up college. We meet Andy at the other co-founder. We meet Andy at the University of Maryland College Park. And, we're starting to get back into the practice for a lot of different reasons. And Uncle Will was just sitting there. It was like he was sitting there waiting for us. And, he was looking for somebody to teach that would like start absorbing this stuff. Because, he liked this solitary lifestyle. He didn't really want to go out. He just wanted to be in his house and study and practice and teach. And that was it. So, we went to him. We got deep into the practice. And then, so that was one part of it. And then our dad sat us down and told us, don't go get jobs when you graduate. You guys are gonna start your own business. Like I don't want you guys dealing with racism in the workplace, because there's gonna be that glass ceiling. Like you might be doing better than people who don't look like you, but they're gonna get the promotions over you. You can get fired at any point. And then if you start your own business, you can hire people that do look like you that might not have a great resume. They might have some stuff on their legal, like on their record. They might not even have a high school diploma. They might just be somebody that just wants to help. So I think those two things combined, like those seeds that were planted early, us getting back to the practice with our godfather, and then our dad sitting us down and telling us not to go get jobs is why the Holistic Life Foundation was formed. So it was us kind of just being smart enough to listen to the wisdom the universe was putting around us from our dad and our godfather, for real.
And just to add a little bit more, I think another reason why Holistic Life Foundation was created was because, you know, our dad was a public school teacher. He was a gym teacher and basketball coach in a public school. And, you know, he saw the disparity in the educational system. So well, actually, my mom is the one that found the program where they were sending kids from the hood to independent private schools in Baltimore called the BEST program. And they got us into Friends School of Baltimore, Quaker School, where, you know, contemplative practices were sprinkled all in their educational philosophy, whether it's like meaningful worship, where, you know, once a week you go to the meeting house and, you know, you sit down and you're quiet, and then if you get inspired, you can stand up and say something and then sit back down, and then, you know, everybody just reflects on what you say. And you know, but you know, that was one aspect of it. They always said take a breath before you say anything, you know, which is, you know, mindfulness within itself right there. Talked about stewardship and all that stuff. And, you know, we were exposed to a lot more than our peers were from our neighborhood. Like, you know, we were growing up when computers first came around. And, you know, our homies in our neighborhood only saw computers in movies, but we had a computer lab. You know, was exposed to the internet when it first came out. Um, you know, went camping and, you know, a lot of other things that kind of increased our scope, got like a college preparatory education. And, you know, when we came home from school, all our homies were outside playing, making fun of us for being in the house, having to do hours of homework. But, you know, we hated it at the time, but it made us be able to.
And also like hours of piano practice too. Our dad was like we'd be staring out the window, like all our friends outside playing, and one of us is doing homework, the other one's practicing piano, and then we would switch, and the other one would be doing homework, and the other one would be practicing piano. And by then, it was like we had like 20 minutes before it got dark before we had to come back in the house.
So it was really one of those things that, you know, at the time we didn't appreciate it, but when we were able to go to college and, you know, just figure out that we knew how to learn whatever we wanted to learn because of the educational background that we had, it kind of blessed us to be able to create the organization that we wanted to. And then we also, you know, once again, we saw the disparity in the educational system, and, you know, we thought that it was effed up. You know what I mean? Like, it was not, people weren't on like the same playing field. Like, you know, our homies were exposed to the 1 block radius. You know, all they knew was what they saw. And, you know, it didn't really have them dreaming at a lot higher level. And I'm not saying it's everybody like that that goes to, you know, public schools, but, you know, where we were at in West Baltimore, in the epicenter where the Freddie Gray uprising was, that was a reality that, like, our peoples didn't get outside their scope, was just the 1 block radius. And we knew we wanted to do something to kind of level off the playing field. And, you know, like Ali was saying, our dad was like, he talked about, you know, creating an ark, which is, you know, like, you know, in Noah's Ark, he created an ark to, you know, get people out of the flood. And he was like, y'all got to do that for your community, with the opportunities that y'all were given. And the way y'all ark is going to be creating a business and, you know, creating programs to help out your community. And, you know, that's what we did, is we formed the Holistic Life Foundation, started off with after school programming, you know, where, you know, yoga is the foundation of everything that we do, because, you know, the physical practices helps you kind of get rid of that trauma that's stored in the body, makes your body a safe space, gets rid of that restlessness in your body, so you can actually sit down and do the breathing that kind of slows your mind down, that can heal up trauma that affected your brain, whether it's your, you know, executive function or your prefrontal cortex or all that stuff that everybody says, or your vagus nerve that, you know, makes you have like a hypervigilance. The breathing practices or pranayama, like y'all was talking about, allows you to have a more calm awareness about you. You know, we don't want our kids to be like walking around with their heads in the clouds when they're living in the hood, where, you know, they have to be aware of their surroundings. So it's better to not just be hyper vigilant. It's better to just have a calm awareness. And then the meditation, which kind of helps them kind of tap into their inner peace because their outward world may be chaotic. Um, and then, we also added in like the enrichment activities, whether it's, dance, woodworking, urban gardening, robotics, dance, I may have said that already, martial arts, and, all that type of stuff. And just doing things to kind of like increase their scope. And we also would bring people in that look like them that had like we brought in an anesthesiologist, we brought in another entrepreneur, we brought in a filmmaker, we brought in, all these different job paths that these kids weren't really exposed to that had, our kids dreaming on a lot bigger level. And I think our job, just like older people in our lives, they kind of made sure that they could support us achieving our dream. We did the same thing with the kids that were coming through our program. They started off in our after school program. Then they went to our mentoring program where we, help them, of course, the yoga, but then we'd help them with like job readiness, building up their resume, college applications, and, just, you know, trying to help them get to college. And if they didn't go to college, we had a workforce development program where they could join our workforce. So, that is our Noah's Ark, our, like our after school program, mentoring program, workforce development program. And, that's the reason why, we started is because, we were blessed to be able to get the scholarships to go to, the independent school. And then, we wanted to create a more level playing field and to be able to help people, like Ali said, achieve financial independence, no matter if they had a college education or not, or if they had a record or not. We wanted to help them get out of the cycle of, if they've been in jail, get out of that cycle of recidivism and get them on the right path. And, it's been helping our folks in Baltimore and beyond.
Ah, man. I say you guys are the trailblazers. You know what I'm saying? Like even hearing more of your story, I feel like in a some kind of multiverse, we just I see so much more similarity, but it's like life prepared you for this from the very moment that you came onto this earth to be who you are in this moment. And although you said like when the parents separated, you lost it, you still came back to it and fulfilled the deeper purpose. And based, well, I'm talking about the program, but I'm really curious. When did you know, like, oh, this is the path that we are going to walk? This is going to be my purpose. And what was that process like for you internally? How did you prepare yourself physically, mentally, emotionally to, like, when you first said we go on full swing on this, what was your daily routine to prepare you to really hold space and create that art for your community and take things full sail?
So that's a great question. So I think it was so like when we graduated, we moved back into the house we grew up in, or the neighborhood we grew up in. Me and Andy moved into the house that me and Oppen grew up in. Oppen moved into the house that was on the corner that my dad had bought and turned into 2 apartments. He moved to the top floor. So it was like our days consisted of like getting up at 4, going to the park and doing yoga, pranayama, meditation with Uncle Will. Going back, I would always go take my dog on a walk and do my mantra practice and then get back. And then we would do some work. We would do some more breath work, meditation in the evening. And then, we would do wild stuff like practice astral travel and like all this, like, like whatever we could do to get deeper connected to the practice is what we were doing. We spent a lot of time with Uncle Will in the morning, but we'd also go by there in the evening. Just for like he would call it a harikatha or like a devotional talk, and we would do that. So I think it was just all those things allowed us to have enough stillness to listen and see where the universe was guiding us. And one of the things that Uncle would always talk about was being a scientist. He would always say, "You got to be a scientist. You got the experiments." He was like, "The practices, you won't know if they work unless you practice them." He would always say, "I could be lying to you all about every single thing I'm telling you and all these benefits of these practices. The only way you'll know is if you actually do them and prove it to yourself. So it was a lot of time experimenting on ourselves with all these practices and prove it to ourselves that it worked. And then when you were talking about losing the practice, Oppen and I were actually talking about this last night, that I think losing our practice was what's made us really good teachers. Because I don't think we would be able to teach someone how to meditate if we didn't have that period of not doing it. Because it would just been something that was just there the whole time. Because it was just like, you know, like we were like, I don't remember not meditating as a kid. Like I don't remember not doing it. And then it was just like, if we had constantly been doing it, and someone was like, how do you meditate? Like, you just meditate. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean, how do you meditate? You just sit down and do it. But I think losing it and having to kind of restart the process really helped us to become really good instructors and teach other people how to do it. But I think it was that stillness. I think we knew that this was what we were going to do. I don't think we knew how we were going to get to where we are now. But I think we just had faith in the process. It was just one of those things that, like, like when you're still, like, the synchronicities light up in front of you. Like if you can still your mind long enough to see them. So I think it was just being able to have that practice where the stillness was there, where it was just like, okay, boom, we do this, and then boom, there's another break from, okay, we going over here now, or are we going over there now? And it would just kind of flow. And also, I think another thing was using the practices to our advantage. Like there were certain practices that Uncle Will showed us that were like to make make certain things manifest in your life, or to bring certain energies into your life. You know, and we used them, and they definitely work. Like I mean, my son even calls the mantras that Uncle Will showed us cheat codes. He was like, you know, if life was a video game, the mantras are like cheat codes. Like, and you know, he used them himself. So it's like, you know, we've been given all this information. Why not use it and teach the other people so they can use it for their advantage too?
And I think another reason why we knew that we needed to share these practices with others was, you know, when we moved back to the neighborhood, our neighborhood was probably one of the most violent neighborhoods in America. I remember like one weekend, it was like 3 murders on like a 2-block radius. You know what I mean? And, you know, we were broke as hell. It was open air drug markets. It was dilapidated housing, gangs everywhere. You know, like I said, murders, violence. Um, and, you know, we were still blissing out. And, you know, our friends used to come to our house. You know, some of them would only come once and see our neighborhood, be like, man, I ain't coming back around there no more. You know what I mean? But, you know, they would always ask us, like, man, y'all are happy. What the hell do y'all have to be happy about? And, you know, we would look at them and they would have nice jobs. They would be, you know, in relationships and married with kids, and you know, nice cars, and have money and nice houses and this and that, but they were miserable, you know what I mean? And we were like, yo, we must be on to something. So, you know, we need to start sharing these practices with other people, because humanity was suffering. Humanity, you know, it was, you know, it was like during like the time of 9/11, and, you know, there was like red warnings on TV where, you know, they were stressing everybody out, and, you know, it was a crazy time, but, you know, we were still blissing out. And, you know, we knew that, and our teacher would always say, man, you would be much remiss if you don't share these practices with others. You know what I mean? He literally would say that all the time. And then we are always eager to get information. And he always told us that, you know, if you get information and you sit on it, you ain't gonna get too much more information. But if you share that information with others, more information is gonna come to you. So we was like, man, we're gonna share this with any and everybody. Um, and I think those are 2 reasons why you know, we started sharing these practices, because, you know, we were in the chaos, but we were blissing out, and then we wanted more information. You know what I mean? So that's, you know, what I think put us on our path of, um, and, you know, he would never let us call him a teacher. So we don't want people to call us teachers. It's more conduits of information to empower people to remember things that they may have forgotten in this incarnation. You know what I mean?
That's beautiful. And every time I hear your stories, whether it be familiar or something new, I'm just always inspired, because it shows me the power of when generations of wisdom get passed down, like Uncle Will, your pops, and getting passed down to you, and you passing it down to the next generation. What I'm going to pick up at, it's like, because you talk about this model, we're not the teachers, conduits, and you have a model within your organization to train a trainer. You want everyone to be an embodied trainer so they can lead themselves and also lead others. So you leave a ripple impact wherever you go. Can you speak to what inspired that, and how do you provide those concepts in trainings and workshops? How is it infused where after a workshop, I'm already like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to train and really be that scientist like you talked about so I can teach others from my experience.
So so when Uncle Will first sat us down, it was so like the reciprocal teaching is a big part of what we do. When Uncle Will sat us down, it was like I don't want no devotees. I'm only teaching teachers. Like as we said, he looked at us and said, he's like, that's not what I'm in this for. I'm in this to teach teachers. So y'all got to agree to teach as many people as possible. So I think that was the root of it. And then I think the reciprocal teaching for us was like it was one of those things that I think we kind of stumbled upon, because in the beginning it was just me, Ottman, and Andy doing everything, like the programs, the administrative work, like we were trying to do it all. And we would have times where it was like we would have after school program, probably about 20, 30 kids at that point, and we'd have to go to another after school program to go teach some yoga. And just to kind of keep the lights on, get the YMCA memberships for the kids, like be able to go on field trips and stuff. So it was like, two of us couldn't leave, and one of us couldn't teach all those kids by ourselves. So we would grab one of the kids and be like, yo, come with us. We're gonna go teach some yoga. And then one of the kids would come with us. They would go help us teach the class. And most of the time they would teach all the class. And then, and then you show off, there was like a Burger King right next to the Y. So we stop and they get some Burger King, come back to the Y, and showing like the other kids got snacks. And they walking in with a full meal from Burger King and a soda, like, yeah. Then everybody wanted to do it. And so then like to do it, you had to show how good you were in the dance studio where we did yoga before we'd take you out to another place. So it was like everybody was trying to be a great teacher. And so then it was like, and then we noticed that the kids we were teaching, they were teaching other people. You're like, all right, so this is just what we're going to do all the time. And it was just like every time, no matter where we were, it was the kids were the teachers. So it was like an after school program. It was like, by the time we shifted from the YMCA to Robert W. Coleman Elementary, it was like, it was like the three of us in a gym with 100 kids. So it was like, like the kids led the practices all the time. Like Ottman would usually lead the meditation at the end, but other than that, the kids were leading all the practices. And it was just like, that's just what it was. And they got really good at it, and they learned to embody the practice. They learned to take it home and share it with other people. And we found that out from the parents. We didn't even find that out. It wasn't an intentional thing. We were like, go home and teach somebody. It was like parents come up to us like, yeah, I came home and I was stressed out and da-da-da-da. My daughter sat me down and was like, oh, Ma, you need to meditate with me. You need to calm down. Because the daughter didn't want to get cussed out by the mom because the mom was stressed out. So she'd be like, Ma, sit down. We need to meditate. Sit down and breathe, meditate with her mom. And then like, all these stories that were coming back where the kids were actually teaching the people. So that became an intentional part of our program. It would be like we would go to a city and we would do this residency program where we go to a city and we go to school for a week, and each night the kids would have homework assignments. It might be like Monday, it might be go home and show somebody how to take a belly breath. Then they would come the next day, would come back, we ask them how it went. The next day, we'd like, go home and show somebody how to do, we would call it the stress breath. They'd like, go teach somebody how to do Ujjayi breath. Boom, all right, they would do that. So it was like homework assignments to like show them that like they could help people with the practice. So I think it started with that conversation with Uncle Will and like us not having enough teachers. So we just started using the kids, and then it actually made our lives easier when we would go out and teach, because like those kids that were like wanted all the attention and were wilding out in the room, you put them up at the front, you let them lead. They got the attention, but it's for a good purpose. So it's just like all these things, and now it's just the way that we teach and the way that we show other people how to teach. I'm gonna turn my camera off for a second. Gotta let my dog out real quick.
I know one other story in regards to us understanding that the reciprocal teaching was happening. We had a lot of older brothers in the neighborhood, and one of our older bros, um, his niece was in our program, and she knew she could get away with murder on us just because, we were family, you know what I mean? And like, she would never do the yoga. And, um, but we had a lot of media coming in. So whenever the media came in, she was up front and center, being on in newspapers, on the news, CNN, this and that. And, we were like, man, she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's just faking. And, I seen her grandmother, well, I guess it's her great grandmother in the neighborhood. And I told her, I was like, your great niece or your great granddaughter is totally missing out on a golden opportunity to be able to help her navigate the highs and lows of the human experience by not doing any of the yoga. Like, she doesn't do nothing every time she comes to when it comes down to doing yoga. And she was like, Oppin? He like, you talking about Najee? I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, you must got the wrong one, baby, because I came home and my stomach was hurting, and she showed me the taco breath and my stomach was better. And I think, yep. And I think that goes to another one of the lessons that our teacher told us, is like, do the work and give the results to the universe. Don't get upset. Don't get bent out of shape if you don't think the kids are paying attention. People are going to get what they're supposed to get out of every single practice. You know what I mean? It may not look like they're absorbing it, but they are. And I think that that's one of the things that helped us in the process. Because if we had expectations going into teaching these folks, whether it's the kids or in a drug rehab or senior citizen home or juvenile jail and stuff like that, we might get let down and we may never go back to teaching. But us giving 110% and giving the results to the universe, that has enabled us to never give up and just be happy with however the results are. You know what I mean? Like, whatever was supposed to happen that day was supposed to happen that day. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's one of the main things is just understanding that, do the work and give the results to the universe.
That's beautiful. I like how you're able to articulate this in such a simple way, but it's still profound. Now, I remember you might have said a story similar to that, because I always remember when we went back into the schools, I always kept it in the back of my head, just because these kids aren't doing anything, you don't really know. And you get up being blown away to kind of hear what's being done in the shadows, and like having that mindset, as you mentioned, to keep pushing forward. But I know on this journey, it definitely wasn't easy. We see all the glamour and the stories and the press now, but like as you started moving more towards working with schools and bringing this work inside of school-based programming, what were some challenges that you faced, and how were you able to? What were the solutions that you created to ensure that you can bring this energy and essence into schools and fulfill that purpose?
I mean, I start off, Ali. One of the biggest challenges was that we were the only bright point of Baltimore City Public Schools. Like, it was all about, um, so much violence going on in Baltimore City Public Schools. The reading and math levels were way under grade level. Um, the school police were getting into clashes with the students, and there was no bright points in the Baltimore City Public School system besides our Mindful Moment program, the program where where kids in crisis can come into our room. They call it alternative suspension room, but it's Mindful Moment room. They come in, and our staff, we have two staff in the room the entire school day. And when kids are in crisis, they can come in there for like 15 minutes. And we actively listen and mirror to empower the kids, because people are always talking at the kids. Then we teach them about stresses, and how the stress plays out in their body. Then we do a breathing practice to kind of, or a meditation to kind of help them drop in and get back to center and grounded and present. We have a tea machine in the room. Kids love tea. We give them some tea and send them back to class. And, that program has brought down suspension numbers, referral numbers, brought up attendance and test scores. And Baltimore City, instead of investing in our organization, because I'm sure y'all know Castle, the organization Castle. They came in to Baltimore City as a consultant and said that, this organization is doing exactly what needs to be done in every single school in Baltimore City. And they thought that we were going to get the contract to be able to bring our program into the schools. And this woman that taught at Harvard University, and that we taught at Harvard University, and we were guest lecturing up there. She got the job to be a wholeness specialist, or a wholeness director of Baltimore City Public Schools. She created a policy to be able to lock us out from being able to do our own program. And for the past 5 years, she has totally failed trying to duplicate our program. And she ended up leaving Baltimore City before she got fired, because she couldn't produce any results. But what we learned from that is about intellectual property. And luckily enough, one of our mentors connected us with an IP lawyer that loves the work that we do so much that they're doing work pro bono for us, where they've created non-compete compete clauses for us and copyrighted all our digital content, our curriculum, and other intellectual property. So it was a learning lesson, and it kind of totally dropped the ball on a great opportunity that we could have had to help out Baltimore City Public School kids. But it taught us a business lesson, and we're in the process of expanding that program into 6 other cities all across the nation. And it's really one of those things that the universe gives you tests, and if you fail the test, you can get bent out of shape, or you can learn from it. And if you get bent out of shape and don't learn from it, that test is going to hit you again and again and again. But as soon as you learn the lesson that you were supposed to learn from that test, you pass that test, and you won't have to deal with that test anymore. But the human experience, you're going to keep getting thrown tests all throughout your life. That's, the human experience. But, luckily we learned a lesson from that test, got the IP lawyers, and, we won't get, that test will not come, or it may come across us again, but we have the proper tools in place to not fail that test ever again in life. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the things that we've learned in this, in the 22 years that we have been doing this work.
I'm curious, just real quick, and because I know you guys are all about the Dharma and the spirit. How and now getting into like the IP and legal, how do you navigate that plane as you maintain the essence and really just doing this from the heart, but now as you climb higher in this space of like success and having a very worthy program and navigating that legal plane. I'm just curious, kind of seeing how that has been for you guys.
I mean, I'd say when it was just the 3 of us, we could operate in that doing it from the heart place. You know what I mean? Because it was just us. We were volunteering out. Like, we volunteered our time with this for 8 years. Like, we worked on the weekends for a while. Like, we would go work 3 shifts on the weekends to make ends meet so that we could continue doing this. But I think now that it's serving so many people and employing so many people, like, we got to put on that different hat, where we got to protect the business side of things. You know what I mean? Like, it would be a shame if all this kind of like fell apart because we weren't paying attention to those things. Just because, like I said, it's employing so many people, it's helping so many people. So it's like, we can't look at it the same way that we did in like the early 2000s. You know what I mean? Like, the way we were looking at it 20 years ago is not the way we can look at it now. So I think it's just a matter of it's like your practice. You know what I mean? Like, my practice in 2001 looked a certain way because I had time and because I had freedom. That practice wouldn't serve me now because I don't have the time, I don't have the freedom, and the universe is throwing different things at me. So I think that's the way that we have to look at the Holistic Life Foundation. Is like, back then, the way we were running it was the way we could run it. You know what I mean? Because of all the freedoms that we had. Now it's just like we gotta keep it succeeding. I mean, we haven't reached our goals with it yet. You know what I mean? Like, we we always said that we were going to be helping the entire planet. You know what I mean? Like, we're doing some good work, expanding across the United States, but like it's a big world out there. People need these practices. So we're not, and we know that you can't serve the entire planet without having solid business infrastructure and having people in the right places and people doing their jobs. So I think that's an important part of the entire thing.
And like the personal practice of yoga is 100%, just to sum up, I guess what Ali was saying, personal practice of yoga, the Dharma, and all that stuff is completely different than the business of yoga. And when we created a nonprofit organization, like Ali said, when we are employed people, we have to have that business mind on, where we have to protect the business of yoga that we have gotten into. Yeah, it's just, what a hat that we have to wear if we want to help as many people, because if like what I was saying is like, the powers that be stole our program, watered it down, and totally did a disservice for Baltimore City public school kids for 5 years. So to be able to protect the fidelity of our programming, we had to put our business hat on, get our business savvy, and move accordingly. And I think that is what the universe wants us to do. That's part of the Dharma, part of the work, part of the, part of, what we're supposed to be doing in this incarnation, And I am going to have to jump off here just because we have a board meeting. And I'm like, I run the board calls, but, love you all. Like I told y'all, I'm Batman, he's Robin. So I'll leave Robin with you all.
That big brother, little brother energy right there.
That joke.
Love y'all, and can't wait to reconnect.
The only Batman he is the one after Bane broke him.
Like brotherly love right there. I appreciate y'all.
All right, peace and love, y'all.
Rodney, did you ever find a silent basketball?
Oh yeah, my son started playing soccer, so I need a silent soccer ball. Now
Gotcha, okay.
he out here. You probably hear him in the background right now.
No, man, that's beautiful. It's like 2.0 from the training that we took in 2017, because y'all brothers were giving everything. Y'all gave out the game. I still got y'all guidebook, all the practices and all the tools in there, and I can see why it's important to evolve in time. I'm also saying that for our conscious educators on the call, so it's probably why we don't have the guidebook out yet. We're gonna put some IP on there, intellectual property, before. But that's real, man. I'm gonna shift gears, Ali, man, and because I really appreciate how y'all show up. And ever since I got introduced to y'all, see y'all in 2017, every time I come across you, whether it's in the media or in person, you always walk the same way. You walk in your truth, you walk in your authenticity. And regarding that, it takes a strong level of like embodiment to understand who you are and to live who you are each and every moment. So speaking of transformation, we've been also grappling with the concept of butterflies, right? And the caterpillar that becomes the cocoon and goes into the butterfly state, we know it's a process. So can you speak to us about your butterfly story? And I know there's probably a few butterfly stories in your life of transformation, metamorphosis, but what is one metamorphosis that really inspired you to not just step up in your organization, but step up in a leadership of where you are right now in the world?
I'd say it was I don't remember how long. It was a little while ago where we were at a point where we couldn't grow anymore. And I got into this to work with kids and work in the community teaching. Like, that was the reason I got into this stuff, was so that I could, whether it was chair-based, mat-based, whatever it was, I wanted to teach people these practices. That's the only reason I got into this. And then we got to a point where we had stagnated, where we had to start turning down contracts. We had to start doing this and doing that. And like, we had reached a point where we couldn't grow anymore because of the way things were set up. And I'd say stepping away from the teaching day to day and going and becoming our executive director was that shift for me, because we went from for a bunch of reasons. One, it was it allowed us to grow. We went from working with like 200 kids a week to like right before COVID, working with like 10,000 kids a week. And that's just in Baltimore City public schools alone. So it was like, all these things were happening. And then it made me realize that, like, if I can train 10 people to teach in the schools, that's better than me going out and teaching the schools by myself. And then those people need to be paid so they're not stressed out and worried about the lights being on or where they're going to eat, this and that. So it was like, there's all these different things that had to happen. So I think that shift from like the mindset of I'm in this to be boots on the ground teaching to I can help the cause more if I take a step back and work on the fundraising, the strategic planning, the training of our teachers, and all those like big picture things, and then have other people in place that can execute. Because so like, I mean, even with our expansion project, like I can't go to 6 cities and teach, but I can help raise the money and bring the people to Baltimore and train them, then send them back to their cities and teach and go do site visits and like all the things that it would take for this program to be successful, and find a research partner, you know what I mean, to prove that this stuff works in all the different ways that it works and not just the numbers that we have access to. So yeah, I think that's it.
That's real. I have another question. I want to just, it's not a pivot, but I understand there's like a ceiling, right? As far as what we can do in school. And that's kind of how KE, a lot of our programs are born just so we can go a little bit deeper than what we're able to do in schools. We can't say certain things in schools because, the backlash, or this is religious, this is this and that, and I understand like you all, have your holistic life foundation, but you also have another business called Involution. And can you speak to how that started and why it started and where it is right now?
So the Involution Group is like one of those things that for years we felt like we were teaching with our hands tied, because like you were saying, in the schools, like my personal practice looks a lot different than what I teach through the Holistic Life Foundation. It's drastically different. So it's like, we're stuck teaching really surface level awareness practices that are doing good. Don't get me wrong, they're doing good. They're helping the kids heal trauma, deal with stress, deal with depression, deal with anxiety, all these things. But during the times that we're going through now, like humanity's suffering, you know what I mean? Like there's that whole, like if you actually, damn, I got the book right here. The Holy Science. Great book. But they talk about like the ages of mutation from like when we're going from one period to another. So like we're going from like that dark period into a higher vibrational period. And those ages of mutation in the middle are where the world kind of goes to chaos. And that's what we're in the middle of right now. So we're going through that. So it's like, if you see, you'll notice there are a lot of people that are kind of ushering that higher vibration, but there's also a lot of people that are holding on to that old paradigm. So it's like, that's why the world's in chaos right now. So it's like, the personal practice that we have has a lot of practices to help people through all that. But with the Holistic Life Foundation, we can't teach a lot of that. So that was why we started the Involution Group, was to be able to kind of help with things. And I remember actually when we were up at the not the youth retreat, but what was the other retreat that we went to? You know what I'm talking about? The
Yoga in schools, 2017?
no, the one later in the summer.
The Wellness Summit.
The Wellness Summit. The
Well-being Summit.
The Well-being Summit. We were up at the Well-being Summit. I remember I was looking at some graphs. I wasn't sure if I was going to use a PowerPoint for a little talk I had to give, but I remember looking at a graph of like mindfulness and like how much mindfulness is out there in like research articles, and the graph goes like this. So I mean, if it's out there in research articles, people are teaching it, people learn it, people are doing studies on it. But also, if you look at the rates of like depression and suicide amongst teens, it's also going like this. So like clearly mindfulness isn't enough. Like kids are aware that they're miserable, they're aware that they're depressed, but then what the hell are they going to do about it? You know what I mean? It's like, now I'm aware of all these things, but I don't have any practice to kind of transmute that energy. So I think that's another big reason for the Involution Group stuff, is like, okay, now that you're aware of it, now you need practice to survive through it and kind of raise your vibration through it all. And the Involution name came from like my dad, my godfather would always say, like, They would say revolutions got bloody, evolutions take too long. The only real way to change the world is an involution, like changing yourself to change the world around you. So that was what we ran with.
And that's dope. It seems like not even this organization will keep you limited and finding that way to fully express yourself. And I often talk to Brother Mike like that. I'm like, man, I can't even show the world who I really am because I don't think a lot of people can't see the light. And like it could be blinding, but it's like, how do you still keep authentic to yourself so that way you're not suppressing even our own uniqueness? So before we open up to this, go ahead.
Ronnie, even the conversations we were having out on the porch at the youth thing, like the world needs stuff like that, but y'all would get ran out the schools if we were talking like that. You know what I mean?
We the Trojan horses, and it says, how do we give them the foundation? And kind of our vision is like you said, give them the basic self-awareness tools. Although we know that's still going to be a ceiling, it hopefully awakens their intuition. So when they go on their own journey, they could begin to have that curiosity, or we can have those real conversations when you're outside of school and having that space, but doing it in a structured way. So I'm curious to see then from that involution group, from your holistic life, right, and working with educators across the globe, what advice would you give to this cohort for them as they embark on this journey of bringing these tools to their communities, bringing these tools to their students, and what are the most important things you would say that they should know, like maybe a top 3 that will assist them to really continue to be impactful in this newfound, not newfound, but an inspired experience that they had here with us?
3 things. One is stay fortified in your practice. I think that was something that's helped us is like your practice isn't something you use only when things like when the shit hits the fan, you know what I mean? Like you got to fortify yourself in your practice during those good moments so that like it becomes like your that's what you're like, our instincts lead us in a lot of different ways, but if your instinct is to fall back on your practice, like then that's going to help you through all the tests that the universe keeps throwing at you. I'd say another thing is it's hard to do this by yourself. Find yourself a team to work with, whether it's just you and one other person, and that's just not only with the work but also with your spiritual journey too. It can become very lonely doing the work by yourself, the inner work or the outer work. So like if you find at least someone that you can talk to, whether it's in person or virtually, someone that you can do the work with outside, like out in the community. But I definitely say get yourself a team, and I'd say the other thing is just be fluid with your practice. I know I fall in the pattern of getting dogmatic with my practice where I want it to look a certain way, even though the universe is giving me all the signs that it needs to look a different way. And then I don't come into balance until I switch my practice to the circumstances around me. And then, then I can get into a group. Maybe, but then the universe will throw you another curveball and you have to adjust it again. But it's just be, like Bruce Lee said, you got to be like water. Like you got to flow with your practice. Like you can't just like, this is the way it is. If it's not this way, then I'm messing up. And have some self-forgiveness because you're going to mess up. Like it's not going to be all rainbows and sunshine all the time. It's going to be a grind. It's not going to be, and that's for the inner and outer work too. Like it's going to get ugly sometimes. But if you can like forgive yourself, like Atman was talking about, the universe giving you those tests that you fail. You might fail it. You dust yourself back off. You get up. Then you go at it again. You try it again. I mean, but that's how you learn too, is by failing those tests. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, that forgiveness is important too.